It was 1946. World War II had just come to an end, and our country was moving forward. And in Phoenix, Arizona, North Phoenix Baptist Church was born.
North Phoenix Baptist Church was constituted July 9th.
North Phoenix started with just 100 members, and believe it or not, they congregated in a school auditorium. It was a very humble beginning.
Paul Bircher received a unanimous call as pastor of the new church.
But it didn't take us long to outgrow that school. A year later, in 1947, we bought our first building and called a new pastor, Arthur T. Sproles.
From the days of its beginning, the newly constituted church centered its emphasis on evangelistic preaching, enthusiastic Bible study, and mission outreach.
And our church just kept growing. You could tell God had great plans for North Phoenix Baptist Church. In 1950, James Staples came to pastor our congregation and shepherded the church for 10 years. Floods of newcomers were coming to North Phoenix Baptist Church. And in 1952, the church needed to expand. New buildings were built. One-story buildings became two-story buildings, all to make room for the people who were being drawn to North Phoenix Baptist Church. After 10 years, Pastor James Staples said his goodbyes, and the church welcomed a new pastor, Dr. David C. Hall. It was 1965. The country was embroiled in the war in Vietnam. The population of Phoenix was about 700,000, and North Phoenix Baptist Church was on the move again. This time, just 7 blocks north of where the church is now. It was a huge upgrade in both property and facilities, designed to serve the growing church for years to come.
So having come from a very small Baptist church, the building up the street was huge to me. I've never seen anything quite like it.
It was small, but really it was large, because when we first came, we had only attended small churches. And to us, we thought, oh my, this is really a big church. It was a great church, it really was.
2 years later, in 1967, North Phoenix was introduced to Dr. Richard Jackson, our new pastor.
So we joined North Phoenix when I was a senior in high school, and I'd never had a pastor be so loud and so adamant about what he was preaching about. But I soon came to realize he was doing that because it was such a major passion to him.
He was not a laid-back pastor. He was really a dynamic pastor when he got up there to preach.
He loved Jesus, and he preached on Jesus. He was a very powerful minister with a great message each Sunday.
My kids, when they were young, they would say, "Why does he yell all the time?" And I would just tell them, it's because he really believes in what he's saying.
He led many people to Christ. And one year, I believe, he wanted to baptize 365 people, and he met that goal.
Winning souls to the Lord was the paramount of Richard's time here at our church, and that was contagious.
Led by this 28-year-old dynamic pastor with a passion for the lost and a heart for this city, a new era of growth was ushered in. So much so that North Phoenix began to look a few blocks south for a new home.
Before you knew it, we were bursting at the seams. There was no room for all of the members who were joining to sit. Multiple services were happening.
It was rather cramped, as I recall, because this is going back some time.
The leadership we had at the church just knew that we needed a bigger place. We heard about this property at Central and Bethany.
Back then, it was a 40-acre lot that was empty except for a few orange trees. There was a God-sized vision to transform this corner into the new home for North Phoenix Baptist Church. This dedicated congregation committed their time and their finances to make this vision come true.
The testimonies that came out of that of people who put off buying houses, who gave their children's college funds, was so motivating so that we could purchase this property.
Hundreds of people, each with their own little shovel, marched south on Central to this corner, where they participated in the groundbreaking ceremony for this great church.
We marched from the old church, we marched down Central. We each had our little shovels.
We surrounded the property and we prayed and thanked God for what He had provided. And we shoved our little shovel and turned our spot of the land. And that gave us such ownership of this property because it was truly a gift from God.
After a ton of work and a load of patience, on Christmas Day of 1977, the congregation moved into this new building.
And then from there, we had an auditorium for, it was the first building finished. We had to do everything we normally would do inside of it. We had adult Bible studies, and we were in all different parts of the building. We had to park at Christown in order to be bused over to the property because there was no parking lot. But nobody cared because it was so exciting.
During this time, there was a big investment in technology. North Phoenix was one of the leading churches in the area of television and production. It was the 1980s. The internet was born. It was the age of consumerism. And at North Phoenix Baptist Church, God continued to move in a powerful way. Over 1,000 people a year were baptized for 10 consecutive years by North Phoenix Baptist Church, with a passion for seeing lives transformed that marks our church even today. In 1993, we said goodbye to Dr. Richard Jackson. The church called Dan Yeary to be our new pastor, and he led our church for 20 years.
He was an easy pastor for me to talk to. Anytime I wanted to talk to him after services, he was a, "Hello, AJ, how you doing?"
And he was a gentler person, and his style was very different. He communicated through very powerful stories. And I think during that time, we were encouraged to be more united than ever before.
He loved people, and people loved him. He was a big part of the children's ministry.
Dan was a true shepherd, and he loved his people. But he also loved Jesus, and his preaching, his sermons of the gospel, always were filled with tremendous personal illustrations and stories that brought the gospel to life.
His favorite saying that many of us remember was, "The best is yet to come."
In 2013, Jason Whalen was called to pastor North Phoenix Baptist Church and served the church for over 2 years.
In his messages, he would mention certain things, and the children had papers with them. So it made them listen to the message, because at the end of service, if they could bring him that paper, he would have a prize for them. And I mean, all of the children, they listened.
Under Jason's leadership, the church began to look to the future. He introduced elder leadership as a concept to the church, and the church adopted that and continues to have elder leadership today. Jason was a strong leader who served the church well. In 2016, 33-year-old Noe Garcia accepted the call to become the pastor of North Phoenix.
Oh my gosh, he's the best. This church was having troubles with membership, and when he came here, he turned this church around.
I just love that about Pastor Noe, that he reveals his weaknesses and he lets us know that we are all human, but that God's grace covers all of that and lets us know that we are not just humans, but that we are his children and that he'll always protect us.
I mean, his preaching is almost unmatched to anything I've ever heard in my entire life. I mean, it's incredible.
Pastor Noe does a really wonderful job of being relatable, yet never shying away from the truth.
His messages are to the people, because he wants them to know about Jesus. He wants them to be saved.
And now Noe has brought the same fervent for the gospel and the people of God.
And the way he engages his audience without using emotion or anything else to just mislead them is amazing. So he's definitely a great leader for his church.
Five years later, our ministries have grown. We're reaching more families for Christ. The Hope Center has been opened to serve the needs of our community. We have multiple campuses, both here in the Valley and in Flagstaff.
I love this place. I've heard people over the years say it's like a second home, and I wondered, how could it be a second home? We spend more time here at North Phoenix than we do any place else other than our home. So this is really our second home.
Everybody is always pressed about one goal of praising Jesus, and everybody's so friendly.
It's not a church where you come and you can sit in the back and no one will notice you. It's a place where you're grabbed and pulled in head first.
And it's been really great to see our church grow.
The community of the church is what makes a big church smaller and what can make us feel like home.
God is blessing in tremendous ways. The future is very bright. And the best is yet to come.